Why do men suddenly lose interest the moment a woman completely opens herself to them? This question haunted Sigmund Freud as he delved into the deepest layers of human psychology. Picture this scenario. You've known someone for weeks, shared every thought with him, answered every message instantly, and suddenly he becomes distant. What happened? Freud would tell you that you surrendered the most powerful tool of feminine psychology, your silence. According to his psychoanalytic understanding, attraction doesn't lie in the obvious, but in the hidden. The human unconscious yearns for what it cannot fully penetrate. Men are evolutionarily programmed to conquer, but how do you conquer something that has already been completely surrendered? Today, I'm revealing 4 psychological dimensions of your silence that will shake any man to his very core. These insights are rooted in Freud's teachings about repression, projection, and the unconscious drives of human nature. If you want to understand the secrets of interpersonal attraction that have captivated generations of psychoanalysts, stay with me, because the first signal will forever change your perspective. The first and most powerful signal of your silence manifests in what you consciously choose not to say. Freud called this the space of projection, that psychic realm where the male unconscious can unfold its deepest fantasies and longings. Imagine this. He sends you a message expecting a detailed response. You reply with 3 words. Immediately, a fascinating psychological process begins in his mind. His consciousness, confronted with this void, automatically fills it with his own projections. He wonders, what is she really thinking? What is she hiding from me? What could be behind this brevity? This form of silence isn't passive, it's active and powerful. Freud recognized that human consciousness has a natural aversion to incomplete information. We are neurologically programmed to fill gaps. When you consciously create these gaps, you force his unconscious to preoccupy itself with you. Psychoanalysis teaches us that men are hunters in the psychological sense. Their reward system isn't activated by what's achieved, but by the process of achieving. Once the prey is completely conquered, it loses its neuronal appeal. Your mysterious silence, however, keeps this hunting instinct permanently active. Think about history's most famous women, Cleopatra, Mona Lisa, Mata Hari. What did they share? They never revealed everything. Their power lay not in what they disclosed, but in what they withheld. Freud would argue these women intuitively understood that male libido ignites most strongly at what remains psychically unreachable. Practically speaking, when he asks about your weekend plans, don't say, "I'll probably stay home watching Netflix." Say, "I have something interesting planned," period, no further explanation. His mind will automatically begin speculating, who is she spending time with? What is she doing that could be more interesting than time with me? These questions activate those psychic mechanisms Freud described as libidinal investment, the unconscious emotional energy a man invests in understanding a woman. Mysterious silence creates what psychoanalysis calls productive tension. It's that tension that must exist for attraction to persist. Without it, passion becomes routine, desire becomes habit. But beware, this silence mustn't appear manipulative or calculating. It must authentically arise from your inner strength. Freud emphasized that all psychological techniques only work when they express a genuine psychic attitude. Have you ever noticed how differently men react when you don't immediately respond to their every impulse? When you don't completely spread out your inner world, but guard it like a precious treasure? This first dimension of your silence is the foundation for all others, but it's only the beginning. The second signal we're about to discover will show you how to use this power even more strategically by learning what to reveal and what to withhold. The second signal of your psychological power lies in the art of selective revelation. Freud understood that the human psyche operates on the principle of reward through scarcity. What's too easily obtainable loses its psychic value. What's revealed in doses gains emotional intensity. Picture this, you spend an evening with him. Instead of telling your entire life story, childhood, ex-partners, dreams, fears, you reveal only one fascinating detail. Perhaps you casually mention that you used to dance ballet, or that you speak 3 languages. Then you fall silent again, not another word about it. What happens in his unconscious? Freud would call it libidinal curiosity. That psychic energy automatically activated when the brain receives interesting but incomplete information. His mind immediately begins assembling these fragments into a complete picture. He wants to know more. He must know more. This technique works because it's based on a fundamental principle of psychoanalysis, the repetition compulsion. People are programmed to complete incomplete gestalts. When you strategically withhold information, you create an open gestalt in his mind, a psychic tension demanding resolution. Consider the difference. Most women tend to reveal themselves completely because they believe intimacy arises through transparency. But Freud taught us that true attraction emerges through productive distance. This doesn't mean emotional coldness, but conscious dosing of intimacy. A practical example, he asks about your hobbies. Instead of saying, I like to read, watch series, sometimes go to movies, you say, I'm involved in something very special, but I don't tell that to everyone. This statement immediately activates several psychological mechanisms: exclusivity, curiosity, and the desire to belong to those few who deserve your trust. Selective revelation creates what Freud described as transference, that process where a person projects their own unconscious desires and fantasies onto another person. By creating information gaps, you give his unconscious space to fill you with his deepest longings. Here lies an important psychoanalytic principle. People don't fall in love with the reality of a person, but with their projection of that person. The more space you leave for his projections, the more intense his emotional bond with you becomes. This especially applies to intimate details. While other women reveal their life stories by the second date, you share tiny, fascinating fragments and shroud the rest in mysterious silence. Every detail you unveil should raise more questions than it answers. Think of famous literary figures like Anna Karenina or Emma Bovary. Their appeal lay not in their openness, but in their inscrutability. Men were fascinated by what they couldn't understand. Selective revelation requires discipline and emotional maturity. You must learn to suppress the natural impulse to share everything. Instead, you become the architect of his fantasies, consciously constructing those psychic spaces where his imagination can work. Have you ever experienced a man losing interest after you completely opened yourself? Now you understand why. You left him nothing more to conquer, but selective revelation is only the beginning. The third signal we'll now explore shows you an even deeper dimension of psychological power, the emotional distance that simultaneously attracts and challenges men. The third signal of your psychological power manifests in conscious emotional distance, that subtle unavailability that both challenges and fascinates the male ego. Freud understood this as a fundamental principle of human libido. We most strongly desire what escapes our complete emotional control. Imagine this. He shares an emotional moment with you, opens himself vulnerably, and you respond with warm but measured empathy. Not cold, not rejecting, but controlled compassion. You show understanding, but don't allow yourself to be completely drawn into his emotional world. This attitude activates a powerful psychic mechanism in his unconscious. Freud recognized that men are evolutionarily programmed to seek emotional security and stability from women. Paradoxically, however, they lose interest in women who grant this security too quickly. The male unconscious interprets immediate emotional availability as a sign of lesser value, a primitive but deeply rooted psychological mechanism. Emotional distance functions on the principle of controlled scarcity. You are emotionally present but not needy. You show interest but not dependency. You offer warmth but not unlimited availability. This balance activates what Freud called the pleasure principle through postponement, the intensification of desire through conscious delay of gratification. A practical example: he has a difficult day and seeks emotional comfort from you. Instead of immediately slipping into the role of maternal comforter and wanting to solve all his problems, you listen, show understanding, but maintain your own emotional sovereignty. You might say, "That sounds really challenging. I'm sure you'll find a way to handle it." Supportive but not rescuing. This attitude causes something fascinating in his psyche. You don't become his emotional mother, but remain an independent, strong personality. Freud taught that men unconsciously seek partners who can replace their mother, but they lose erotic interest in women who actually take on this role. Emotional distance protects you from what psychoanalysts call demystification. Once a woman becomes an unconditionally available emotional resource, she loses her erotic appeal. She becomes security, not passion. Think of literature and history's most powerful women. They all mastered the art of emotional dosing. Scarlett O'Hara, Elizabeth Bennet, Cleopatra. They offered emotional closeness, but never complete emotional submission. This distance requires inner strength. You must learn to distinguish between empathy and emotional fusion. You can empathize without losing yourself. You can support without sacrificing yourself. This attitude doesn't make you cold or manipulative. It makes you mysterious and desirable. Emotional distance also activates male protective instincts in healthy ways. Instead of exhausting him through constant neediness, you inspire him to earn your attention and closeness. You transform from problem to challenge, from project to prize. Freud emphasized that true erotic attraction is based on productive tension, not resolved harmony. Emotional distance maintains this tension. Have you noticed how men behave when you're emotionally too available too quickly? How they lose interest once they securely have your complete emotional devotion? This third dimension of your silence, emotional distance, is powerful. But the fourth and final signal we're about to discover combines all previous insights into a psychological force that will shake any man to his deepest foundations. The fourth and most powerful signal of your psychological force lies in silent authority, that quiet power that emerges when you let your silence become a projection screen for his deepest unconscious fantasies. Freud called this the mirror of transference. You become the blank screen onto which he projects his repressed desires. Picture this. He talks, argues, explains his worldview, and you listen. Not passively but actively silent. Your eyes show intelligence. Your face reflects understanding, but you don't offer hasty opinions. This form of silence is pure psychological power because it forces him to confront his own thoughts. In psychoanalysis, silence is the most powerful therapeutic tool. Therapists use conscious pauses to make patients dig deeper, reveal more, confront themselves. When you apply this technique in interpersonal relationships, you become the analyst of his soul. The male ego is programmed to fill spaces with its presence. When you create silent space, he will automatically try to conquer this space. He will talk more, explain more, reveal more of himself, all in the unconscious attempt to gain your attention and approval. Freud recognized that people project their own unconscious contents onto neutral surfaces. The less you reveal about yourself, the more he will fill you with his own fantasies. You don't become what you really are, but what he wishes you to be. This silent power works because it simultaneously activates several psychic mechanisms. First, narcissism. Men love talking about themselves, especially before an attentive but mysterious audience. Second, projection, into your silence. He projects his ideal woman. Third, transference. He transfers onto you all positive qualities he desires in a partner. A practical example, he tells you about his ambitions, dreams, fears. Instead of immediately countering with your own stories or giving advice, you simply say, "Tell me more about that." These 3 words, followed by attentive silence, will make him reveal layers of his personality he would never otherwise disclose. Silent power makes you the accomplice of his self-revelation. He will feel that you understand him like no one else, even though you've barely said anything. Paradoxically, he will feel closer to you because you gave him space to discover himself. This technique requires emotional intelligence and self-control. You must suppress the impulse to constantly respond, comment, evaluate. Instead, you become the silent witness of his inner world. Freud taught that the most powerful position in any relationship is taken by the one who needs less, says less, reveals less. Not from coldness, but from strength. Silent power unites all 4 signals. You create mysterious spaces, selectively dose information, maintain emotional distance, and become the projection screen for his fantasies. Have you ever noticed how men open up when you simply remain silent and listen? How they start confiding things they tell no one else? These 4 dimensions of your silence aren't manipulation. They're psychological truths about human attraction. But how does this knowledge fundamentally change your relationships? Why do these 4 signals work so powerfully? The answer lies in Freud's revolutionary discovery of psychodynamics. Those unconscious forces that control human attraction without our conscious awareness. Freud recognized that male libido isn't stimulated by what's achieved, but by resistance. In psychoanalysis, we call this the principle of productive frustration. The more resistance a woman offers, not hostilely but mysteriously, the stronger the man's libidinal investment becomes. Think of the male psyche as hunting instinct. This instinct is activated by movement, by what escapes, what flees, what must be conquered. Your silence is this movement. You don't flee physically but psychically. You withdraw from his complete mental conquest. Psychodynamics shows us that men are unconsciously programmed to define value through effort. What's easily obtained is rated as less valuable. This primitive evaluation logic stems from evolutionary times, but still operates in every male unconscious today. Your 4 signals of silence activate what Freud called sublimation, the transformation of sexual energy into creative, conquering energy. The man unconsciously begins to idealize you, romanticize you, elevate you to a fantasy larger than reality. This happens through 3 psychodynamic mechanisms. First, projection. He projects his wishful thinking onto your empty spaces. Second, transference. He transfers previous positive experiences onto you. Third, idealization. He makes you the perfect woman of his dreams. The paradox here, the less you reveal about yourself, the more perfect you become in his imagination. His psyche fills the gaps with the best it has to offer. You don't become an ordinary woman with flaws and weaknesses, but the embodiment of his deepest longings. Freud taught that true erotic attraction is based on psychic tension, not resolved intimacy. This tension arises from the incomplete, the unfinished, the mystery. Psychodynamics also explains why long-term relationships often lose passion. Once all secrets are revealed, all spaces conquered, productive tension disappears. The relationship becomes safe, but no longer erotically exciting. Your silence maintains this tension. You ensure that he never completely has you, not in a possessive sense, but psychologically. Part of you always remains mysterious, always unreached, always desirable. This insight changes everything. You now understand that attraction is an active achievement, not passive surrender. You must consciously create and maintain those psychic spaces that keep male desire alive. But how do you apply this deep psychological knowledge practically without losing your authenticity? The true power of these insights lies not in manipulative techniques, but in the fundamental transformation of your self-understanding. Freud taught that awareness is the first step to psychic liberation. You now understand the unconscious mechanisms that control attraction, and this knowledge makes you free. Imagine, you enter future encounters not as a needy seeker, but as a psychologically enlightened woman who understands the rules of the unconscious. You no longer have to guess why men behave as they do. You know. This transformation begins with a radical redefinition of your self-worth. Your value no longer lies in how much you give, how available you are, how completely you open yourself. Your value lies in your psychic sovereignty, in your ability to create and preserve mysterious spaces. Practically, this means you become the architect of your own attractiveness. When he asks about your weekend plans, you consciously decide how much to reveal. When he seeks emotional closeness, you dose this closeness strategically. When he wants to understand you, you give him enough to remain fascinated, but not enough to see through you completely. This attitude requires inner work. You must learn not to make your own completeness dependent on male validation. Freud emphasized that only those who are psychically independent can be truly attractive. Neediness repels, self-sufficiency attracts. The 4 signals of your silence become natural expressions of your inner strength. Mysterious silence arises from your certainty of being interesting. Selective revelation springs from your awareness of your own worth. Emotional distance reflects your psychic independence. Silent power expresses your self-confidence. This transformation changes not only how men react to you, but how you see yourself. You transform from reactor to actor, from hoping to knowing, from seeker to sought. Freud taught that the most powerful position is that of the analyst, the one who understands without being understood. You become the analyst of male psychology while remaining a fascinating puzzle yourself. But never forget, this power comes with responsibility. Don't use it for manipulation, but for creating authentic, passionate connections. True attraction emerges when both partners grow psychically. The ultimate goal isn't control over others, but sovereignty over yourself. When you master these 4 dimensions of your silence, you become a woman who doesn't need to be conquered because she already belongs to herself. Which of these 4 dimensions speaks to you most strongly? Which insights will you integrate into your life first? These insights are based on fundamental truths of human psychology. They're not manipulation, but psychological enlightenment. Freud taught us that only those who understand unconscious mechanisms can make conscious decisions. The deepest question that now arises, which hidden truth about your own psychic power will you begin living today? Which part of your authentic self is waiting to finally be understood and consciously employed? What country are you watching from? Drop a comment below and let me know where you are. If this content resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more psychological insights that will transform your life.